Can you believe it? The richest man in the world is going to bring his genius ideas right here to my small hometown of Bastrop? I mean, this is going to put us on the map. We put all our chips in Elon Musk coming to this community. So let's look at some of those projects that he's done and the kinds of jobs that it creates, shall we? So this is an investigation published by ProPublica from January 8th, 2025. And it's a report on the Boring Company's attempt to build a Hyperloop in Las Vegas. Originally, the thing about Hyperloops is that they were supposed to be like, okay, do you remember, okay, wow, this is gonna, you're, okay. Do you remember how I said I was like almost 40 years old? Here's the proof. Do you remember like in old buildings or like at the bank, including at the First National Bank in downtown Bastrop, you'd have those vacuum tubes and you'd get this little you'd get this little tube and you'd twist off the top. It was a real Star Wars looking thing, and then you'd put your check in there, and then and then zoom, and then it would go through the tube, and then you know what I mean? Like maybe they did that at pharmacies and stuff too, but now they do the box. Do you know what I'm talking about? Anyway, the original idea with the Hyperloop was to build like a vacuum tube that you would just shoot a train through, right? Like there's no resistance, there's no friction, you would just bam, and it would be like hyper fast, a kind of hyper loop, if you will. And other companies tried to do it and decided not to. But the Boring Company is still at it. And in Las Vegas, they created a car tunnel. It's not a Hyperloop. It's not a vacuum tube. It's just a tunnel that cars can move through, one car at a time, very slowly. And apparently somehow they're still getting lost, and like tourists are wandering in. They can't find or maybe they're not wandering, maybe they're driving in and they can't find their way out. And then surprise, surprise, unhoused people are camping also in the tunnels. A prediction no one could have seen except for obviously anyone thinking about these things, including the people thinking about them here in my hometown. Here's some highlights for the story. And obviously, all this stuff is going to get linked in the description thing. And while you're down there, don't forget to like and subscribe if you love these cranky, dumb, ignorant rants. Proposals in Illinois and California fizzled after officials and the public began scrutinizing details of the plans and seeking environmental reviews. Why would it fizzle at that? And as local politicians were approving an extension of the system, boring workers were filing complaints with the State Occupational Health and Safety Administration about, quote, ankle deep, end quote, water in the tunnels, muck spills, and severe chemical burns. After an investigation, Nevada OSHA in 2023 fined the company more than $112,000. $112,000. Yeah, that'll probably deter the richest man in history. Further along, the result is that key questions about the operation and maintenance of an unproven transportation system are unanswered. The county declined to answer detailed questions. It provided a statement saying that the Boring Company, quote, is responsible for the safe operation of its system and retaining a third-party Nevada-registered design professional to conduct annual audits of their operations. The county can review those audits and inspect the system as deemed appropriate. What's the point of being a government? Like, just shut it down and go home. Why are you... I don't understand. If you're not going to do this, we should just shut... Like, if you actually want to not have a government, just shut it down. But I think you like having a government as long as you're in charge of it. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Later on, everywhere Boring tried, it struggled to start digging. In Chicago, where then Mayor Rahm Emanuel was a supporter, local leaders expressed skepticism about whether Boring could build an airport loop without public funding. In Maryland, where Boring and federal officials completed a draft environmental review in 2019 for a high-speed link between Baltimore and Washington, the company never started tunneling. The only place it really caught on, it seems, is Las Vegas and potentially Nashville. So what are they doing to build these tunnels? Here's how ProPublica describes it. Boring uses a machine known as Prufrock. I don't appreciate that reference. Anyway, Boring uses a machine known as Prufrock to excavate its 12-foot in diameter tunnels, applying chemical accelerants during the construction process. For each foot the company bores, it removes about 6 cubic yards of soil and any groundwater it encounters, according to a company document prepared for state environmental officials in Nevada. It is required to obtain permits to ensure the waste does not contaminate the environment or local water sources. But public records seem to show that, quote, the company has been less than meticulous in handling the waste. In June, an employee with the county road division tailed a boring company truck that spilled mud onto city streets, according to the records. The trucks, quote, have no marking and no license plates, end quote, wrote Dean Mosher, assistant manager for the roads division. A truck route that the company had reported to the county must have been, quote, totally false. A few months later, a truck hauling waste from the project spilled gravel, rock, and sand onto Interstate 15, slowing traffic for more than 4 hours during rush hour. The driver was fined $75. We love Law and Order, don't we, folks? In an interview with ProPublica and CityCast Las Vegas, a Nevada transportation industry expert who has closely observed the system's development said it was concerning that Boring's plans, including basic transportation safety protocols, haven't been vetted like a public project, said the expert, who requested anonymity because of concerns about professional repercussions. I don't think Bastrop's less than half-a-mile pedestrian tunnel would have those kinds of problems, but if a place as big and growing as Clark County, Nevada, can't figure out these kinds of things, I don't think we're going to be able to figure out the kinds of things that happen on our scale either, especially because, to me, this all reeks of wishful thinking, right? If we can convince the right companies to put down roots here with the right incentives, they will bring jobs. Those jobs will bring people. Those people will bring more jobs, and it will continue to grow and do great things for the community. But that's not really how you run a community. A community is both a group of people, which is always changing, and a physical place, which is also always changing. But it's not always growing. That's just not how things work. As has been noted, the concept of infinite, unobstructed growth is the ideology of a cancer cell. But unfortunately, local leaders are saddled with this idea that they constantly have to grow the community, that basically they have to always keep earning higher profits for their shareholders, whether they think of those shareholders as the people of the community, as maybe they should in this metaphor, or as other interests. I don't know. I wouldn't know. I don't know. The ProPublica story ends on this note. When a large expansion into the city of Las Vegas came before the city council in 2023, Goodman, a member of the council, criticized the project as unsafe, inaccessible, and inefficient, but said she would still vote in favor of it, quote, because of the plea of the hotels and the private sector to move more and more people easily around our southern Nevada community. And these are real concerns. People are moving there quickly and they need ways to get around efficiently. The question is, are we wasting our time and efforts on pie-in-the-sky dreams because Harold Hill came to town? I think there's a pretty easy counter-argument that I've heard many times. In fact, I've heard it repeatedly from local officials, and that is, if you think you can do the job better, well, hey, pal, this is America. Why don't you try? And the answer to that is the expectations we put on public officials like you, Mr. Snide, straw man guy I just made up. And I'm definitely not referring to a specific local official who has said as much to me personally. But the idea that a county judge or even a county commission can adequately manage the concerns of a fast-growing community and balance all of their needs is absurd. It's stupid. And anyone who thinks they can do that job is both brave and probably a little stupid, or just really, really brave, or maybe a little full of themselves, right? Because you have to volunteer for this process. That's the other part of it, right? Like, no one is born the county judge, although, I mean, I'm sure it comes close sometimes. But anyway, no one's born into their office. They have to work for it. So don't work your tail off for my vote and then get mad at me when I want you to do the job that you said you were going to do. You know what I mean? But all of that is like what happens when you make people compete for things, right? That's how elections and politics work. But it's not really how policies work. It's not how decision making works. And I think it's the outcome of a world where people think of their right to vote as a way to protect their personal interest as opposed to a way to use their impact to make society better. And those are two very important ways of looking at things. One, I think, is better than the other, and you can make your own judgments. But I think whatever you think about that, that thought process is very important in how things work out. Listen, I don't actually care that much about the tunnels. I do think it's a very weird idea. I'd be curious to know how in demand something like that really is, how economically efficient it is to actually spend that level of money on it. But I do know that Elon Musk is a showman and a charlatan and a scammer and a guy who was born on second base thinking he hit a double. You know what I mean? And now everyone just has to believe that him coming to town is going to make things better, is going to create some sort of fountain of perpetual money for the community so it can just always keep growing and outcompeting other communities for tax dollars. I mean, that's a pretty grim way of looking at things, but I think that's kind of how things work right now. I don't need to go into Elon Musk's track record, but I just don't think he's a good businessman, and I really don't think he's very good at much of anything, including video games. And I think at the end of the day, politicians just like hype, right? They don't need it to actually work. They just need it to work long enough to get them to the next election, all the while talking about how, well, these things take time. They're slow investments, but they're actually really long-term investments, even though everything they're doing is so short-term in its thinking. It's like gas station logic. Like you're just going to buy enough gas this week so your tank doesn't run out until you get your next paycheck, right? We're just going to promise enough to get to the next election. And again, you're going to say, Andrew, run for office. Why don't you do that? And I'm going to say, well, for one thing, I live like a mile outside the city limits. So despite being within the city's extraterritorial jurisdiction, I do not get to vote in city elections, and I'm not eligible to run in city elections. But again, I'm going to have to re-emphasize my point that the idea that one or a few people could manage something as big and complex as a county is unfair to everyone. It's unfair to the citizens who are getting short shrift with silly ideas like getting Elon to spend millions on a tunnel that a homeless person might actually take shelter in. Like that's the problem you're worried about. Like I say, it's unfair to the citizens, and it's also unfair to those elected officials who probably worked their butts off their whole lives being told that they could make a difference if they worked hard, if they learned the right things, and maybe if they made certain moral compromises along the way, they would get enough influence, enough, if you will, power to turn the needle in the right direction, to do the right thing, to actually do right by your neighbors and make the community better. I think that's the motivation sometimes. I think anything that gives somebody a little bit of power is going to attract two kinds of people. The kind of person who wants to use that power to help others, and the kinds of person who wants to use that power to hurt others. I would imagine most politicians fall into the former category, but the way politics works does not really allow them to be moral anyway. So it's just a big compromise all around. What I'm saying is I don't really know if our officials can be doing better. Well, I know they can be doing better, but I don't know if they individually as people are failing as much as the way we've organized things and the way we live in a culture where we can always assume that there's some professional or some person who's going to get paid to clean up this mess, and I don't have to think about it. I think we're quickly learning that if you don't mind the store, things start to fall apart pretty quickly. And, you know, when there's lots of things to worry about, things like the Buc-ee's tunnel really stick out. And I think there are stories like this all over the state regarding other things. A lot of rural communities right now are looking not to Elon Musk specifically, but similarly in the upcoming tech bubble of AI, which will never burst, and these tulips will be valuable forever, comes this story from the Texas Tribune. It takes place up in the Panhandle, where companies are trying to build data centers that use, well, a lot of water and electricity. And if you've noticed the national news stories, people who live near data centers are paying much, 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 much higher prices for electricity. But don't worry, Texas has its own electricity. Texas has its own electricity grid.